My theory is they're a little bit starstruck.
I personally feel that you do have a spirit attached to you.
Do I?
Which I could see as soon as.
Oh look, I've gone like.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you have a lady who.
Oh, thank goodness for that.
Yeah. Who's.
You know, I now take quite fatherly interest in you, and I want you to now promise me that you won't be as seduced by any more ectoplasmic fancy men.
I've just arrived at Laurence Llewelyn-Bowen's house. Now, this house is said to be haunted. I'm here to talk to Laurence about everything spirit related and to see if I sense any ghosts.
By the way, this is not a ghost, this is a grandson. Come on in if you're brave enough. Are you feeling brave? Are you feeling brave?
I'm here with Laurence Llewelyn-Bowen in his house, which may or may not be haunted.
Well, no, it's meant to be extremely haunted. It's meant to be one of the most haunted houses in the area. When we bought it, when we first moved in, it was like Scooby-Doo. People go, "You're living there."
Oh,
you know,
it was
really?
sort of, yeah.
Are you going to do that? And so we've been here for 18 years, and I do get that. When we first moved in and we were here for about 6 weeks before we did anything, it didn't feel, it didn't feel like it was ours at all. I mean, it did feel as if there were, we were sharing it. But I don't know what it's, despite the fact that people consistently keep seeing ghosts.
Yeah.
I think my theory is they're a little bit starstruck.
Oh, really?
I think they look at me and they go, well, I can't bother him, I'll pop out for a selfie or a parchment or whatever ghosts do. So I'm always a little bit disappointed.
Do you think that's due to, do you think you're not open-minded enough to attract, or you'd really liked one to...
I'm super cool about it. I mean, we have had... we've had all sorts of psychic moments here. People have come, and one of the things I've always said right from the outset is that if anything is here and if anything is found and accredited, I don't want anyone even thinking about exercising it, no matter what it is, because it's it's part of the ecosystem. We're all rubbing by together, and there we are.
If someone came into your home and did sense something, would you want to know, or would you?
I'm constantly being told, and I'm completely, I'm extremely interested in what people have to say and what they say, they see, and it's a very well-known house. There's a lot of history, a lot of very well-researched history on the house. So we know a lot of the bits and pieces that have gone on here. And it had a very unusual history as well, because it started off, this is the old section here, which was probably about 1580, 1590. And then the other section, the wing, he says grandly, was put on we were always told it's 1640, but I think it might actually have been a bit later than that. I think it must have been 1670. So it's that's the modern extension. That's the Grand Designs extension. So
this would be the area in which you would feel that people mostly see ghosts?
No, I mean, both. I mean, it's just age doesn't seem to be the issue so much.
I look at ghosts in a little bit of a different way to a lot of people. I don't think that they necessarily stay in one area, if that makes sense. I think that obviously you get like a haunted house, and the theory being that if someone lived there or had a big, strong connection to that property, they could still be there for whatever reason. But I do believe that spirits can move amongst us and would not necessarily be spotted always in the same place. So it's interesting how your kind of theories develop over time.
Well, I think this is it. I mean, I'm not really into any of the theories. I think that this is one of the things that, in a way we get wrong, is we try and be too scientific about everything. And that actually, I'm very happy to feel that there are people that used to live here that are enjoying this conversation as we speak.
Yeah.
And I'm completely open to that. I love the sense of history. I love a sense of being part of a linear, line of people, before me and, hopefully after me that occupy spaces, that sit in the chairs, that, look out of the window. I think that's wonderful.
Do you think once you pass on to another, whatever you believe, I don't know if you believe in afterlife, do you think you will hang around here and haunt the new owners?
Well, there's that wonderful story of Daphne du Maurier pre-haunting her house, that there'd been a long tradition of a white-haired woman with very blue eyes and a blue smock being seen at a high window. For like 50 years, people would see this woman allegedly, and then she suddenly worked out after she'd been in the house for I think 15, 20 years that it was her, and that was exactly what she did. Was she worked in this room right at the very top, and she looked out of the window, and she had sea blue eyes and a blue fisherman's smock, and she felt that she was actually pre-haunting the house. So there we are. Who knows?
That's an amazing thought. As soon as I saw you, I sensed. Ooh,
very distracting with the dogs.
It was quite funny with what I was about to say, but I personally feel that you do have a spirit attached to you.
Do I?
Which I could see as soon as.
Oh look, I've gone like.
Yeah, and
my spine is
kind of. Yeah, and I feel like I have a bit of an ability to see spirits, which is quite a new development for me, I have to say. But I did sense that.
Do you do lottery numbers?
No,
because that would be very useful.
That would be such a good use of it. But no, I feel like I don't know.
So I'm attached.
I feel like you have
I'm being stalked.
Well, I feel like you have a lady who...
Oh, thank goodness for that.
Yeah, who's rather fond of you. And I don't know when you're walking around the house if you can ever feel that there's someone behind you or a presence. I mean, you said that you haven't really experienced
one of the problems is that I can suck the oxygen out of a room in 30 seconds flat. So I think, it is interesting because, certainly there are a variety of entities that people see on a regular basis, or feel on a regular basis. And certainly there's a spirit lady that people are often very drawn to. So that's a snoring spaniel. Yeah. And she, many people have felt her. And there've been various moments where as spiritualists, and we had a television company from America and all sorts of stuff, they felt they were trying to sort of pin it down to a particular person.
Yeah.
But certainly my elder daughter has certainly felt female presences that have been comforting and calming and, quite very maternal.
I feel like this woman, I don't know her name, like sometimes I just get flashes of things, which is rather than a full picture. I feel like there's almost an admiration there, and I feel like she once looked after this house, and she's kind of watching you, and she approves of what you've... I don't know if you've recently redecorated this, or if there was ever a room...
Look around.
Sorry,
it's constantly recently redecorated, for goodness sake.
Of course, it's a regular thing. But I don't know if there was once a red and white room that this lady didn't approve of, but apart from that, like the use of red and white in succession with each other, like...
That sounds like an early changing rooms room, doesn't it?
It kind of does.
Do you think it's one of my former changing rooms clients?
Oh, she doesn't approve of that. Yeah,
and again, this is this is what I find interesting, is the fact that there is a very much a commonality to what people experience. So this is it's very easy to see that there is a sort of a logic to all of this, and absolutely. There's a very protective female presence that is also particularly interested in children, is something that comes through a lot. Cecile, my older daughter, felt very much when her first child, Albin, was born, that there were moments where this presence was actually trying to comfort the child, you know. And yes, we're doing this big refurbishment at the moment. We haven't really done a lot of... In fact, I might have just put some red and white in upstairs, so I don't know whether that quite works. But no, I think that one of the things I would love is the sense that if there are these presences, that they do approve and they do enjoy. I mean, this house had quite a checkered history. It was a prosperous house. The owner then converted to Quakerism very, very early on. So a guy called John Robertson, he converted in the sort of 1630s, I think, before most people. And that's a time of great great conflict amongst religious dissenters. It's also the Civil War, of course. And they were persecuted. The Quakers were persecuted. And what John Roberts did was then create this. This became a big homestead. And it was walled, and there were lots and lots of different houses. And there were many, many different Quaker families that were then incorporated in this kind of safe place. So this is why it was never the kind of the grand manor house in the village.
Yeah.
Architecturally, it has all the credentials, but actually it became a bit of a commune. Over the intervening years, I think it wasn't ever really then properly lived in by one family until we came along. It was it went through a whole, it was divided, subdivided. Then it became an antique showroom. Then it was bought and owned by a Japanese lady who always had a terrible problem with the ghosts. Huge problem with the ghosts. It was a rental property. We did a program when we first moved in here, and it was very popular all over the world. We used to get letters from Australia and Canada, people who'd rented it saying, how can you even live there? We had terrible troubles with the ghosts.
I don't feel like there's anything like that to worry about. I feel like this presence is a comforting present it's a peaceful present who's very, very, I don't know, just fond of you. And
I have conversations with the house. On a reasonably regular basis, particularly first thing in the morning when I've got a hangover and I have a sort of building out at the back there where it's got running machines and stuff like that, and I trying to wake myself up. And I will often have long conversations with the house about how much we are enjoying it. So what we have done is, it's now not just me and Jackie living here at all. It's we have both daughters, both their husbands, their families, their 4 grandchildren that just run riot the entire time all the way around. So, I mean, in many ways, we are creating this very, very romantic, but very happy family home out of someone that I don't think had that sort of sense of family for a long time.
So the energy is obviously approved of, I guess. And you said you talk to the house. I wonder if you are subconsciously talking to this lady.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think you're talking to. I mean, I was having this conversation with one of my daughters. I mean, sometimes you talk to the moon. Sometimes you talk to the garden. Sometimes you talk to nature. It's a processing, isn't it? And I think in many ways, for me, I'm actually reaffirming to myself how much I'm enjoying what's happening. I'm 60, life's very busy, I could, it's good for me to keep saying, isn't this amazing that we're doing this? Because you know what it's like, you wake up in the morning and, you're thinking of bills and things that aren't going right. Actually, it's important to make sure that you do appreciate the stuff that's going, the stuff that is going wrong, not just focus on the stuff that's going wrong.
Yeah, I feel like that kind of whole notion of, you should be scared of ghosts. And of course there are troubled spirits.
But there are troubled people.
Well,
this is it. They're troubled spaniels.
The way I look at ghosts is when you're talking to them and communicating with them, they are people, or they were people. So they have different personalities. They have different temperaments.
Of course.
And obviously, if you kind of go into a house and try and aggravate them and have all this ghost gear and say, prove yourself and jump through hoops.
I think that's so vulgar. I mean, and so presumptuous. And we have had those kind of moments. And I felt like apologising the whole time. It's just like, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, because you don't want to be left with an angry ghost.
No, but it's not even that. I mean, I just think, actually, as I say, this is this ecosystem that we all inhabit. They're part of the family. I mean, anything in this space, be it on this level, in this plane, or on another, is, as far as I'm concerned, part of our tribe, part of our, part of our family. And I don't want them. I don't want them upset like anyone else.
And you'd almost be slightly arrogant if you wanted to get rid of them because they were here first.
Absolutely. And actually, I think that this is. I think one of the things that a lot of people struggle with, particularly these days, is history. They worry that history is somewhere that you can't go because they're concerned the politics are going to be difficult. And, yes, of course, it was a very different place that, thank goodness things have changed. Thank goodness we have moved forward.
Yeah, we've evolved.
But I love history. I love history.
Yeah, I'm so inspired by history. I feel like we
Which
can
favourite
learn.
Victorian?
Victorian.
Do
and
you?
A lot of the time I dress
Religious
like
fundamentalists, though. Are you sure about that?
Well, I'm thinking from a style, aesthetic, kind of very shallow perspective, to be honest.
No. I mean, it's funny because I'm it sounds weird, but I'm always drawn to periods in history which have very strong senses of femininity to them.
Yeah.
And actually the Georgian period is much more female than the Victorian period. And actually the Edwardians were much more female than the Victorians as well. The Victorian women were quite sort of simpery, I always feel.
Yeah, I feel like there's a kind of, I'm drawn to it somehow, the whole style, which is very kind of covered and corsety and very, I don't know, I
contained.
feel like a little bit, but that's kind of my personality because I'm so far that and then so far the other way, and somewhere in the middle it kind of meets. So.
Of course, it's hilarious because all that corsetry and all that kind of prudery and all that kind of don't show any flesh, they didn't wear knickers, or in fact worse, they wore crotchless knickers. Yeah. So they had these big bloomers, but there was nothing in between. It must have been terribly drafty.
Exactly. I mean, one extreme to the other.
What's that all about?
Yeah. Well, there you go. But yeah, that would be my aesthetically shallow answer to that. But I mean, and also,
shallow is incredibly illuminating. And aesthetics are the most phenomenal barometer for personality. So, I think that's much more fascinating than you telling me that you were really into the repeal of the Corn Laws.
Well, I feel like sometimes I don't have anything to prove with my answer, so I'm just,
But absolutely.
And also the spirits that I've connected with often are from the Victorian era.
These are interesting.
And I actually married the ghost of a Victorian soldier, which sounds quite bizarre to come out with. So I feel like perhaps at some point...
And how's that marriage going?
I'm not married anymore.
Okay.
It was one
did he move on? He didn't find another spirit, did he?
Well,
didn't leave you in the lurch, did he?
Yeah, he started to ghost me. It's a really long story because before that whole encounter, I didn't really think. I mean, I don't know about you. I mean, this house has become a focus of people wanting to know about the ghosts. But on my day-to-day life, before that, I didn't really think about ghosts. I didn't go ghost hunting. I didn't look for spirits. Obviously everyone loves a good ghost story, but I wasn't really aware of them. And I just had an encounter that was so impacting that it changed how I thought. And I was just like, how can I go from experiencing that to saying ghosts don't exist? So it became a part of my life for quite a long time, having these encounters with this spirit. And yes, okay, the marriage was a little bit of a bad life choice, but it was kind of a journey that I felt like I was on for whatever reason. And now, after that relationship, and I still see my ex-husband, but during the marriage, and there was a period where I did want to call in an exorcist because it was so intense and it scared me a little bit.
But did you know much about him before you married him?
I had quite a vivid image of how he died. And
it's not a great way to start a marriage, is it?
Well,
vivid image of his death. Love at first sight. I'd just seen how you died. Great. But no, I knew snippets. I sensed more of his personality rather than the facts and the figures. Like, he was a Victorian soldier. He would always appear in his uniform. I picked up emotionally on a lot of him, like his personality traits, the way he would communicate. So almost like, say when you meet a stranger or you go on a date, you don't necessarily know you probably... Listen, I've been married for 35 years. It's been such an incredible... Queen Victoria was on the throne last time I had a date, so you're going to have to remind me of all of that kind of stuff.
Well, I think I was just trying to say that it's the personality you warm to rather than what they eat for breakfast. Do you know what? And I feel like sometimes when I meet ghosts...
I don't know. The physical presence is quite an important part of it, which obviously you didn't have that physical presence at all. Well,
not in the traditional way that it was flesh.
No.
So, no.
Are we dealing with ectoplasm, or was it just...
It was just... A lot of it was an energy, and a lot of it was a presence where I could see and sense. A lot of things would move around. Kind of had a weird way of communicating via like candlelight, and so there was a really...
Did you have much direct communication though? I mean, was it mostly interpretive?
No, it was direct in the fact that I could see the vision of him.
Yeah.
I would sometimes ask questions and I would get the answer in a sort of apparition. So it was kind
Well, that's like most marriages.
Yeah,
you know,
you have
where
to be
the wife would just,
telepathic.
exactly. You know,
and if you don't pick up on it, you're
dead.
dead.
You know, if you, exactly, which is great. I mean, you know, I think that's exactly how it should work. I mean, having been married for 35 years, I keep getting this question, which is, well, what's your secret? It's just like obedience. You know,
It's doing what you're
obedience,
told.
just doing what you're told. You know?
Well, the ghost definitely didn't do what he was told. Hence why he's.
So you moved on.
Yeah, and I feel as well that I sometimes see him, but it's not in a sense where I have...
And is he linked to a particular space, or does he follow you around?
No, he followed me around. I met him at a...
So he was drawn to you, basically.
Yeah, and which is quite interesting, and people have various different theories as to why this would be, and I think...
yeah, but you see, I think theories are where it all goes wrong.
Well, this is what...
Because this is what I found with, you know, every ghost hunter experience we've had. You know, you'd meet the people and we'd have these conversations and I'd be fascinated, you know, and then they'd say, but, so we've got this. And they'd start bringing stuff out of a bag, which just... I mean, it was just like stuff you get on Amazon, and you know, it put a battery in and it fizzed and it span, and you know, and then they go and we've got these secret cameras, and there was one point with one lot where their conclusive proof that there was a ghost upstairs was the fact that the cat toy that they had, which was battery operated, stopped moving.
Yeah.
But it was quite obviously because the battery had stopped, and that was you know.
I've always been quite sceptical of those sorts of devices.
But surely that's the whole point, is that we will never get proof. So actually the point is not to look for proof. The point is to actually understand the experience.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the time I was just going with it and rolling with it and being so open-minded.
Which is why it would then escalated into a marriage, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, if you kept saying, I want proof, which again sounds like an ordinary marriage.
Yeah,
You know,
I want
corporeal
proof
marriage.
it. Yeah. No, I feel like that was why it kind of transpired, because I was quite open-minded. I was willing to learn, and I didn't sort of test. Like I feel like that every time I said like I want an answer to something, it didn't happen. Didn't go down.
No, but I think this is one of the things, and I think that this is something that particularly people struggle with more and more and more and more and more, because we spend no time outside our own heads anymore. You know, we don't, even brainy people listen to podcasts, you know, when they should actually be looking out of the window and working out where their head is at. You know, nobody looks at pictures in clouds or fires anymore. This is, you know, we're full of information, but nobody spends any time digesting that information or analysing that information or working out their own take on that information. So we just do these kind of knee-jerk things.
Well, I feel like that's why you're saying like it's a bad idea to try and put a theory to it. But the reason why I did is because obviously when you kind of go through this weird thing, you end up married to a ghost somehow, you end up getting divorced. You kind of do have quite a few questions.
Surely divorce must have been quite easy though.
Well, he didn't take half of everything I own.
No, but it must be like ancient Roman divorce, which is like, I divorce you.
It was actually quite weird. Like I went through a stage where I was trying to get him exercise, and that made it worse and worse.
Yeah,
and
but
worse.
I mean, I completely get with, you know, I think exorcism is a very, very savage.
It's horrendous.
And also, of course, it's very divisive in that it is entirely sectarian most of the time. You know, it is all about religion, exorcism.
Yeah.
And who's to say that ghosts are about religion anyway? I mean, you know, it's a tremendous presumption, I feel, that you're, you know, putting on this experience.
I felt like that whole kind of exorcism thing was more about mentally breaking me down than getting rid of any ghost. Yeah. And I think the one thing that made...
Sorry about the snoring spaniel, by the way.
Someone's going to be
your viewers will be going, I heard something.
There's a demon in the corner.
Yeah.
I feel like the one thing that kind of made me let go was to like accept it and just say, look, it's fine. I'm ready to let you go. That, like almost accepting it and say, look, let's just move on. I don't want to exercise you. Let's just live in harmony, but please don't be there all the time. And I feel like since that moment, and since speaking to a few different psychic mediums, some who were a bit whack, like some of them, it's just a tricky situation when you go and see a psychic medium and they're sort of telling you all this stuff about your husband that doesn't correlate with...
Well, I think this is one of the problems I have. And you know, there are, I mean, you know, listen, I'm sure a lot of them do kind of believe it, but I get it quite a lot. People will often say that they feel that there is a psychic dimension to me that I have not explored. And they will then go through long, you know, summations about my previous incarnations and past lives and stuff like that. Yeah. And then, I mean, a couple of times, I am very aware of them fishing, you know, and you can tell that they're sort of, you know, so they say, oh, and your parents don't love you. I go, well, I'm 60, so it's probably quite likely.
Yeah.
But, you know, actually, it's rare for them to then make the link that, in fact, my parents died when I was quite young. And, you know, but then again, you know, I am actually quite, you know, you can Google me.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Googling me will tell you most things that you need to know.
Well, yeah, this is the trouble with this day and age. I had quite a funny encounter when I was meeting this medium who was going to perform an exorcism. And he comes up to me and he's like, your mother's dead. I'm like, no, she's not. And I was literally panicked because she's alive. I was checking my phone and like, Mom, are you okay? And I was like, whoa, how did you get that wrong? Yeah. I was like, maybe you should just not be a medium.
Maybe you shouldn't give up with the day job. I mean, you know, maybe you
that was a bit like, whoa. And sometimes I do sense and see things about people, but I couldn't perform it on cue. Like if someone booked me for a session.
Well, I think this is probably part of the problem. I think. You know, and I think that actually there's, sorry, but all that slamming, by the way, that again, that's grandchildren, that's who are fundamentally poltergeists. Yeah. I think that I am really, and I don't think there's any debate about it whatsoever. Actually, I think people are capable of so much more empathy and sympathy and thought and analysis than they ever give themselves credit for. And I think that sometimes you can, you know, you can see a lot more about a person than you know, you don't even need to get into a complicated psychic explanation. I think people have an ability to be a lot more understanding about other people.
You were mentioning that your daughter's quite sensitive to spirits. Now, I would say, like someone like me who's very sensitive to spirits, I'm very sensible. I'm not very sensible at all. Clearly, I'm very sensitive in real life to people's emotions.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you would. Find
you're an
that
empath.
And I don't know if you would find that with your daughter. Like,
she's incredible. You know, absolutely. She's incredibly good at reading a room. Yeah. She's very subtle in the way that she approaches people. She is very thoughtful in the way she approaches people. I mean, this is weird, but I am actually very empathic with people as well. Yeah. But I use it for the dark side. So, you know, she's always trying to make things better.
You use it to get...
I use it to sell them duvet covers and, you know, wallpaper they don't need. And no, I mean, I think that actually, and I think that's a sort of a straightforward ability a lot of the time. Because Hermione, my other daughter, is absolutely literally the least empathic person you'll ever meet in your life. But that's fine because her energy points in a completely different direction. And I think that this is one of the things is that, you know, we're used to being quite judgmental about whether a thing is a good thing or a bad thing. And actually we shouldn't be because, you know, energies are energies and they propel. We all get there, but we just get there at different speeds in different ways at different times.
Yeah, I feel
like... My God, that sounded so wise.
Wow,
I think I should have that tattooed on my butt.
It's so wise, Laurence.
It's so wise. I should, oh my God, let's put that on a mug.
Yeah.
Let's go back to my female entity because I mean I do think it's quite interesting. I mean one of the bits of research that was done was that during the persecution there with the Quaker community here there was a midwife and she was Quaker. She was older and but she was an incredibly good midwife. Okay. And she was actually the midwife for all the, all the big families in the area. I mean, she didn't just do Quakers at all. And she was quite well known for being a midwife. But during the persecution, I think it was the militia turned up here to break up a Quaker meeting. And this is all historical record. I mean, this is, we've got the court assizes and stuff like that. And there is a specific mention that they were very rough and that they pushed this midwife down the stairs and that she died of her injuries about 2 or 3 days later. And that is something that's, always been quite interesting. And we think that actually she was, I can't remember her surname, but it was Elizabeth something. And she's definitely on the record of Quakers who are buried in the Quaker graveyard, which is at the end of the garden. And the interesting thing is where that staircase was, because we have the main staircase over there. And certainly, people, so whenever Cecile has really strongly felt this female presence, it's been in this side of the house and particularly this room or the room above it. But then there's a long record of then seeing an older gentleman, and he's very accurately described for that particular date, the kind of 1640s, 1650s. And he's reading a book and I think he's smoking a pipe. Don't get me wrong if you're a non-smoker, I'm sorry. I'm 60, I can't remember these things quite so well. And then there was a very interesting one actually, quite recently, a neighbour's son who was about 3 was adamant that he could see an old man in a red coat in this room.
Oh, I see. And,
I was playing it off because, it's not long after Christmas and stuff like that. But he was absolutely adamant. He was look, I couldn't see anything inevitable. Again, another part of historical record is that during the English Civil War, the area was very parliamentarian. Although the big house, the Bathursts, the Earl of Bathurst, they were very pro-royal. But we know that there was one of Cromwell's generals was billeted in this house with some of his soldiers for quite a long part of the Civil War. And of course, that's extraordinary because we also know that Charles II was on the run through Cirencester. So he may well have walked past my wall whilst Cromwell's general was in here. But of course, the Cromwellian uniform was a red coat. So, it's very easy to make these these jumps, isn't it?
The minds of children are so pure as well. So you're more likely, a 3-year-old...
Until they discover Minecraft and it all goes horribly wrong.
Yeah, indeed. But a 3-year-old's mind would be quite pure if they saw something, perhaps, unless they've been reading too many books.
Well, again, like I say, I found it quite interesting because specifically it was the 2 or 3 days after New Year, we'd taken the Christmas decorations down, and
maybe he was being hopeful. Maybe he thought Santa was coming back.
This is
I don't know. We have friends in particular who they've moved now, but they used to just live down there, and their daughter, literally the whole time, would be looking around, and you'd say, "Is there anyone here?" Oh, yes, there's an old man over there. Yeah.
And as far as she was concerned, this is an incredibly populated space.
Yeah, I feel like when you're talking some words, then there is a woman who's almost just watching you and looking at you, almost quite
telling me off.
No, almost quite adoringly, Laurence. She's literally dreamy.
Well, do you blame her?
You've got a ghost that's got the hots.
Like I say,
don't go and marry it. It wouldn't go down well.
Oh no, I'm sure. And in fact, there was another very interesting thing because again, there was a. You're seeing a very different dynamic because you're not here with Mrs. Llewelyn-Bowen, who's a very, very, very strong character.
Maybe she knows she's away. This ghost is making its move.
But some of the things that have always come back is the fact that the female spirit is very drawn to Jackie as well, and really sees her as being this very kind of strong linchpin. I'd love. This is, as far as I'm concerned, absolutely lovely that the way that we live what we're doing. People thought we were mad to, divide the house, bring all the children back. We've also split the financial responsibilities. So everyone now owns this house. This is literally a commonwealth. This is not, me being, kind of very wealthy and owning a big house at all.
Yeah.
We all own it now, which is, I think, very, very sensible. But the idea that could be approved of by people that lived here before is a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
And actually, even if that's not true, even if they don't actually exist, even if they're not even here, that still makes me feel that it's a wonderful thing anyway, because it's sort of, actually, when you're doing something positive and when you're doing something that's about sort of, moving things forward, it's really, oh, hello. It's the needy spaniels, But no, it's been interesting, and I've had a lot of press this week. I've been doing a lot of interviews and stuff like that, and people are very interested in the fact that we do live like this, and they are feeling it's inspirational. That for a lot of young families, they find it very difficult to find somewhere to live, and yet there we go.
There we go.
Here we are. Welcome to the Spaniel, isn't it? But no, I think it is. I think that I have always been very engaged with the history of this house and the sense. Well, that sounds so.
But it's so like you
dusty,
looked after it beautifully, which is more than a lot of people do with these beautiful old homes. So I guess that is being appreciated by.
Well, I think in a way, I've always had a very strong sense that we should not be approaching the way that this house looks in a kind of a respectful kind of National Trust archaeological way. That actually the original inhabitants, back in the 1640s, if you could have afforded wallpaper, you would have had wallpaper.
Exactly.
They would have loved colour. Arguably maybe not the Quakers, but certainly, as long as it was, because of course that was one of the extraordinary things about the Quakers, was that a lot of their disapproving was to do with the slave trade. That things like the not having sugar, not drinking rum, not wearing cotton. They were absolutely appalled, and because that was exactly when the slave trade was starting, was the 1640, 1660. So actually, in many ways, it's all very, very modern. But yeah, I have set about very deliberately trying to create a happy family home. It's end of.
Yeah, exactly.
But also a space that is actually very stimulating. I love the fact that my grandchildren are growing up with, and people are always appalled. They kind of look at, what do you do when your grandchildren are here? Do they not knock things over? Just like, yeah, sometimes.
Well, yeah, they
but
might as well knock it over in a nice house.
Yeah, well, exactly. And actually, then we stick it back together. Yeah. Actually, what's more important, I think, is that they appreciate the fact that some things are delicate and that some things do need to be looked after. And when people lock everything up and cover everything in plastic sheeting like it's a crime scene,
like
children
a
are going to
museum or something. It's probably a bit more appealing to try and break.
Children are not going to understand about the responsibilities of it.
I did pick up on a really, like when you were talking about the Quakers, and I know that this probably wouldn't be ordinary and it would be quite interesting to research a little bit, but I feel like one of the Quakers that lived here was actually quite different to what their personality would be, if that makes sense. I feel like they were quite eccentric.
Well, now that is again very interesting. But so John Roberts, who's the original inhabitant, and he's a very well-known Quaker. His son wrote a book, a biography of him. Okay. He's incredibly well known in America. But one of the big things about him is that our perception of Quakers is the big hat and very disapproving and and puritanical. Yeah. The descriptions of John Roberts are nothing like that. He was he's always described as being incredibly jovial, very very good company, and actually very open as a religious person. That he used to have very friendly but quite spirited debates with the Bishop of Gloucester. But one of the things that's quite interesting is that there's a sort of a slightly strange kind of almost pre-Christian, almost Celtic thing to him. That he was known as a finder. So people would ask him where things were that had been lost, which is obviously something that, very much part of kind of village folklore. But he does very much sound like not the kind of perception of the kind of the judgy.
Yeah, that's
Quaker.
what I picked. Cause
Jackie's always desperate to meet him.
Yeah.
They're always desperate to bump into him. She always feels he's going to be a very, very lovely, jovial kind of fellow.
I feel like there's like, just in my like kind of, there's a correlation between this lady and someone that perhaps looked a little bit like you. You know, I was saying that she was looking at you adoringly. I feel like...
Well, I think it was a strong look in the 1640s. I mean, let's face it. You know, just put me in a kind of a drop collar. And,
like a few ruffles here and there. But I don't know. I sometimes just random things which might mean something, might mean nothing. Kind of just...
again, it sounds so sort of trite to say I find this fascinating, but I do find this absolutely fascinating because, I love the idea that everything in our lives has been something else before. Yeah. There's that wonderful quote of Brian Cox, the physician, not the actor, saying that, the thing that we get wrong about our bodies is that they are temporary structures. We've got to understand that. They are temporary structures that then get completely recycled. But they are recycled. All the atoms become something else.
Yeah.
And actually, I think that's very much life. I mean, everything in this room has been owned by somebody else before, more or less. I mean, or it has been something else before. And I think that's really rather lovely.
What's your thoughts on haunted objects? Because often people will say this painting's haunted or a mirror's haunted. I've been to a few of these sort of museums that house haunted objects, and there'll be a mirror on display, and some people will have taken that out of their home because they'll say when you look through that mirror, you can see an old lady behind you or some...
It's probably just a very unflattering mirror.
It's like, wow, is that what I look like?
I know, it's like, sorry, bitch, yes, that's what you look like.
That's reality.
You. Duh. Yeah, I mean, for goodness sake, I think it goes the other way, though. I think sometimes you come across an object, and, we don't do it so much anymore, but when we lived in London, in Greenwich, we're always drawn to very historical areas. We're always drawn to areas that have always had a lot going on in them. We've got a house in Port Isaac in Cornwall as well. And we go to Venice, on a regular, several times a year. It's almost like we're drawn to places that are likely to be haunted.
Yeah.
Put me in Dubai and I'm a bit kind of like...
Yeah, it's a bit too new.
What's going on here, But I think it does go the other way. And when we were in Greenwich, you've got Greenwich Market where, it's bric-a-brac, kind of antique-y bric-a-brac. But sometimes I remember looking at an object, picking up an object, and feeling such intense pleasure from it, which I'm sure was predominantly aesthetic. I'd be going, oh my God, I really love this. And, getting extremely excited when it was only £5 or whatever.
Oh, but that's the best
that's
thing.
The bit.
That's
exactly.
The best thing.
That's the bit.
If it's in an antique shop in Cirencester for £2,000,
no.
It needs to be.
Yeah, you got to feel. You got to feel that you're being singled out as its next owner.
Yeah.
And being on budget is a big part of that. But I do think that that's it. And I think I definitely feel connections with people. I mean, that table, which has been in Jackie's family for a very, very long time, like probably since it was made in like the 1820s. But I will forever associate that with her grandfather, who I was very, very fond of.
Yeah.
And you look at that, I look at that, and I remember it in his house, and I remember him. I think he always had a bottle of gin. That's why I remember it. It was his bar.
You just remember the gin.
I remember the gin. Yeah. But I think yes. I think if an object can be unpleasantly haunted, I think it can be pleasantly haunted every bit as much.
Yeah. There's something that perhaps draws you to everything, whether that's an entity or not is questionable, I suppose. But yeah, I feel like there's been paintings as well that have been changed. Like there was one of three little girls, and when you looked at it, it changed into like a deep. It's kind of
I find that more complicated I find that more difficult to buy into. Particularly, because also the other thing is that we are still. With all of this, we're dealing with folklore, fundamentally. We're dealing with things that people have believed for millennia, but never really proved, and particularly now. No, but this is it. Particularly now, in our world, it doesn't exist unless it has been scientifically proven.
Or unless the news write about it, in which case it's 100%.
Well, exactly. Or unless it's you get the right amount of clicks on social media. But fundamentally, we now live in a place where unless you get a scientist to say, yes, this does exist, everyone goes, nah, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Or, there are enough people saying it doesn't exist for it to not be, the truth. But actually, that's a very recent thing. That's a very modern thing. 200 years ago, everything was relative. You had no proof yes or proof no. So you just kind of kept your mind open, you know.
And I suppose sometimes the proof, you're not going to get the conclusive evidence. So sometimes it kind of...
No, and I think particularly, it's almost, I think it must be very frustrating for someone who is hungrily, desperately trying to believe in this kind of sense of spiritual, because it's very difficult to get the sign off on it, isn't it?
I've been shown, like, a lot of people have shown me pictures on their phone, and they're like, there's a mass here, and I'm like...
one of the innate problems that with the appearance of apparitions that I've got is the fact that your brain is hardwired to do one thing before it does anything else, which is to recognize another human being. And this is primordial. This is vestigial. There's nothing you can do about it. Your kind of chemical electrical brain, every time it looks anywhere, and I know this very clearly because of things like pattern making. So if I'm designing a wallpaper, I need to watch out because otherwise you get devil faces or whatever. And we've got a very clear picture, a very clear set of criteria. It's a bit like a kind of AI computer bot thing. If it's symmetrical, if it's got two eye shapes, if it's got two if it's that shape, then it goes human, fellow human.
Yeah.
So inevitably, if you're in a situation where you're surrounded by abstract, you're going to see a figure. If there's smoke everywhere, or I had this. I was filming in Pompeii years ago. There's a series I was doing for BBC Two, and I had a terrible hangover. And I was very embarrassed because it was a big gig, and I shouldn't, I wasn't supposed to get it wrong. And also, there were like loads of cameras, and it was before drones. There was a helicopter. It's all very, 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 very. I had to get it right. Meanwhile, it was a bastard script. It was 20 minutes practically of stuff about Pompeii, and a director I didn't like very much. He was actually very, very bossy. And the whole thing was set up. So the Via Stabia, which is the long road in Pompeii, there were cameras kind of concealed all the way along. I had to start at one end and give this long piece to camera about the end of Pompeii and the fact that it was fundamentally a mass grave. Although now, actually, we feel it probably wasn't quite a mass grave because they're again, that's the dog.
Boring.
Yeah, boring. Actually, a lot of people got out of Pompeii, so it wasn't quite as tragic as somewhere like Herculaneum. But nonetheless, it was powerful. And I had this helicopter following me as well. And I started walking, and I was sweating gin as I started walking, looking at this distant camera, absolutely holding it in my gimlet stare, not wanting to, get a single word wrong. But as I started walking towards this camera, and I was saying about Pompeii being a mass grave, every single building I passed, I saw figures.
Oh, wow.
Through the windows, and the doors, I saw figures, but not just figures. I saw like old men, and I saw children.
Really?
And I saw, people wearing togas and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, I was so sort of fixed on getting it right. Yeah. I just carried on. On. But it was just getting worse and worse and worse.
I wonder if that was, you've written it off and said it was the gin, but I wonder if that was actually something in that.
No, I'll tell you exactly what it was. It was the dust.
Really?
It was the dust, which is everywhere in Pompeii. And the helicopter was disturbing the dust. Because actually, when I stopped the piece to camera and actually looked, because this is all in my peripheral vision, it was just shapes. And, in a dark room where you've got dust rising and sunlight hitting it, these shapes become figures. And I've got a very, very visual imagination, so they don't just become figures. I've actually cast them as Pompeians. I've filled in those gaps. So it was hilarious as far as I was concerned. I don't put that forward as in any way denigrating ghosts. I'm not saying that proves that ghosts don't exist. But what I do feel is that actually one of the most interesting things, the most prevalent apparition by far. So the thing that people on planet Earth see more than anything else is the Virgin Mary. Mm.
Oh, really? And that's interesting, isn't it?
And the reason for that is, and again, this is, I'm quite science, kind of dismissive. I don't necessarily think science has got all the answers. But actually, this sort of makes sense logically and philosophically.
That does make sense.
Which is that the shape of the Virgin Mary is so recognisable because it's that, like that. And actually, that is incredibly achievable. Nature never grows in straight lines. So if you're, if you're digging in a field on a misty morning and you look up, it's very easy to see a shape like that in a tree. And if the light's hitting it from behind and you want to see it, it becomes
and it's that thing as well. If you want to see it, if you're looking for that kind of nod from
But then I think it happens the other way around
religion,
as well, that actually people don't want to see it. So, maybe this is what's, potentially awful, is the fact that you have actually got the Virgin Mary in a hawthorn tree, but the person digging doesn't want to see the Virgin Mary. So just, did you know that most people see the shape of the Virgin Mary in a hawthorn tree?
And
So, it can go either way.
It,
But I think it is very, I think this is, again, why it's good to take science out of the equation. Because science can give you the wrong answer, as well as giving you the right answer.
A scientific answer, won't there?
But there doesn't need to be.
No, I don't think there needs to be.
200 years ago, there was no scientific explanation for it. It was the Victorians that were trying to, drill down into, what ghosts were, and you have these, strange theories about ectoplasm and goodness knows what and goodness knows what. Actually, maybe it's just our history surrounding us, and sometimes our history becomes manifest, in certain people's minds.
I feel like there's certainly a lot of ghost talk and a lot of people encountering ghosts and talking about ghosts. And I bumped into Frank Skinner at the weekend, and he was saying not only have a large proportion of the population believing in spirits, but I think it was something like 30% of people, when they did a poll for one of his shows, had actually seen a ghost or thought they had seen a ghost. So it's definitely a conversation that a lot of people are having. So,
well, there's that philosophy. I think, I can't remember who it was, the philosophical, kind of maxim, which is that there's one thing far, far worse than seeing a ghost, which is never seeing a ghost. Because never seeing a ghost presupposes that there is absolutely no survival after death. So that's a big thing you have to get your head around, which is that actually when the lights go out and you get taken out with the rubbish. So to philosophically be able to be happy with the fact that there's nothing further means that you very few people are there.
I've never actually looked at it from that perspective, but that is quite interesting, because I suppose a lot of people would take comfort in the fact that some form of them would still be here to look out for those that they loved, or
I think it's, because I think humanity finds it very difficult to get its head around the idea that all of this going on in here just stops overnight. Because all of our experiences, all of our loves, our lusts, our anger, everything we've done in a lifetime, the idea of that just snuffing out in a second seems so brutal and so pointless, and surely that can't happen.
In nature, the nature of the word death, that could potentially happen, I suppose, if you don't believe in ghosts. But I feel like it's comforting to...
I think that's exactly what it is. And I think that particularly, and it's very interesting that those kind of percentages that Frank came up with. It's very, very... It's a cross little fellow, though, sometimes, isn't he? It's very...
He was fine with me.
Yeah, well, I'm sure he was charming and lovely. But, but I think, of course, the other interesting thing is that, that is probably on the same sliding scale. So the amount of people believing in ghosts is probably on the same sliding scale as the amount of people that no longer believe in God. So, back again 200 years, you had such strong faith that, there was a deity, there was a divinity that was looking after you. But more than that, would actually be then welcoming you to Abraham's bosom after you ceased to live on earth. If you take that out of the equation, it's just like, well, what the hell does happen? If we haven't got the pearly gates, then what does happen?
I feel like the hardest area of the whole ghost topic is the fact that the people that want to believe in spirits because they've lost someone who's important to them. And that's where you know, I was saying I do pick up on spirits and I do sense things. That's the area of it that makes me feel quite uncomfortable, because I know a lot of people are looking for, and a lot of mediums make their money and make their business from that. And I just don't think I would feel particularly comfortable should I be in a situation where I sense someone's immediate relative.
Absolutely.
I feel like that's so much of an emotional responsibility, and you're either giving someone hope or it's a lot, isn't it? That kind of.
Well, I think where I particularly lose faith in it is when they start talking about pets. You know, I mean, it's you know, when they say, you know, I've got your budgie. You know, he's banging his head against a bell.
And I've got your dead relative.
But no, I mean, but again, you know, that's again, we in many ways we've been quite foolish. You know, we've thrown a lot of babies out with the bathwater by questioning, you know, these belief systems that have been in place for thousands of years, for millennia, to make us feel happy about who we are and where we are and how it works. We've said no. We're just us, and we're going to get on with it, and somehow science has got the answer. But actually, it doesn't help. It doesn't help at all. When your daughter dies senselessly, needlessly, to some horrible disease or some horrible accident, you know, you processing that is unbelievably difficult, particularly if you can't do as generations before have done, say, well, it's the will of God or the will of Allah or the will of Yahweh or whatever. If you're just saying, no, it's just absolute hideous, awful, dreadful bad luck, it just happened. You know, where do you go with that? So of course, you know, you're desperately going to cling to this idea that somehow they're still around somewhere. And they're not here, but they're in the next room.
That's the area of it that I find quite difficult, because it's different when we're talking about a Quaker from a whole other era, which would have no living relatives who would know them personally.
Well, it's so funny. I mean, get back to Pompeii. I remember, you know, again doing a piece of camera. By this stage, the hangover had worn off a bit. But you know, with all the casts of the bodies, and you know, there aren't that many. You know, like it seems that a lot of people did get out of Pompeii, but you know, I think it's the Garden of the Refuge or whatever. And there's I don't know, I think it's about 20 or 30, and there's several children, and you're standing there thinking, oh my God, this is so sad. And then you've got to be quite firm with yourself, saying, well, actually, we're 2,000 years later, they wouldn't have survived till now. You know, don't start treating this as you know, a personal tragedy. It is a tragedy. It's a historical tragedy, and we need to be incredibly respectful for that. But don't start getting over emotional about something that, you know, you've got far more important things to be focusing on than worrying about that.
It's well said.
Again, write that one down.
Write that.
I don't know what it is. Maybe this entity is making
this entity is making you very wise, like spurring you on from the sidelines. I always find as well that when you refer to a spirit who might be present, it's odd. It's like they're acknowledging that you've acknowledged them. Do you see what I mean? It's quite strange. It's kind of like when I talk about the attachment that you have, it becomes more predominant when I
mean, you know, you saying things like that, you know, I don't think I've got any hairs on the back of my neck. If I have, I'm going to sue my barber. But I mean, you know, you get that kind of tingly flesh thing, and I think it's very easy to see something like that, you know. I mean, it's definitely, you know, I'm feeling all sorts of energies going on here. But I mean, I'm not, you know, I have not had any kind of visceral experience, you know, bodily experience of this. But I don't know, I mean, you know, maybe it is just that my life is too loud, my life moves too fast. Maybe, you know, she can't get a word in edgeways. Maybe I'm just walking from room to room, she can't keep up. I don't know.
Maybe, and I also come to this theory quite often, is maybe she doesn't actually have anything to say.
No, absolutely.
Maybe she is just quietly admiring and watching, and maybe there's no message.
Absolutely.
Maybe there's nothing that she...
Why do we feel there should be a message? You know, this is the thing. We always feel that somehow you know, there's got to be a point.
Somehow
maybe there isn't.
I don't feel that. I just feel like she's happy to be here.
Well, like I say, I mean, I would, you know, to me, I think this is such a lovely thing to comprehend, such a lovely thing for you to say, because this, you know, this entity to me is like what the Romans call the genus loquitur, the personification of the place. That, you know, this is the sort of the kind of the goddess that looks after this little square of land. You know, and to feel that, you know, she might be on our side and approving of who we are and what we do is lovely.
Do you want to know how I see her look?
Go on.
She has quite, and this is quite unusual, she has quite striking red hair.
Right.
Which is slightly...
So is that unusual because you don't normally see colour?
I feel it's unusual just because it's very, very striking and not necessarily, probably slightly rare of that type.
Is it natural?
Yeah.
It's not assisted?
No, I don't know. I don't think they would have had those means.
Well, but how do you know when she was, when's she from? Is she giving you a date?
No, but she's definitely not.
What's she wearing?
To me, she looks like she's a housekeeper rather than someone who... Yeah, she looks like she's looked after this house in not necessarily a kind of wife role.
No. I mean, that is definitely fitting with the mythology of this house.
Yeah.
Which, makes me feel maybe it's much more than just mythology.
I feel like she's very, very protective.
I think we were having a party or something. I don't know. She'd put Albin to sleep in this room here, which is quite unusual. And she was sitting outside the door and she could hear a female voice, soothing but strong, saying, shh, sort of soothing, kind of almost like rocking the child to sleep.
Yeah.
And she found it, very quite disturbing in a way. You would. She was having sort of quite a lot of postpartum issues anyway. But Albin stopped. Absolutely stopped.
Yeah, like it's kind of like matronly, but
matronly
soft, but not.
Yeah.
But very well.
My favourite kind of girl, actually. I love matronly, and I'm very interested in the red hair thing as well. Actually,
well, there you go.
I'm quite interested to know about clothes, though.
I just see like an outline of like black and kind of. There might be like a white black like poking through. But it's more the personality. It's more that kind of weird, like fondness.
Have you got an age
of her in her 40s?
Yeah, but you see, that's
in those days.
That's end of life in those days. John Roberts, I think, was quite. I think he was quite unusual. I think he died in his kind of late 60s.
Yeah.
But again, you see, no disrespect, but we're loading this now with a lot of other knowledge, aren't we? We are
exactly.
garnering it. We're embroidering it based on other stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all, because I think that it's part of the storytelling. It's part of the romance. And if this house has this female guardian spirit who has the very good taste to think I'm quite the thing, then, what a lovely, lovely thing. And this house has been an incredibly positive influence on us, without doubt, and our family. And I think it continues to be.
I was going to say, that's why, like the questions, like when you start, it's like, it's kind of like, that's not the thought.
That's not what we need to know.
But it's kind of like not what's naturally, I see like the red hair and...
Well, no, I'm just quite interested because there was, I think it was my other daughter, Hermione. Jackie's got a great friend who has a lot of hair. It's kind of reddish. And she's our local aristocrat, Lady B. And Hermione... was very confused because she kept seeing her. She kept seeing someone with reddish hair, big, kind of put up, which is what Lady B often does, but in a long skirt.
You wouldn't say pin curls, but it was almost...
No, exactly. Very...
I don't know how...
Is it quite curly?
Yeah, but kind of like...
Yeah,
say you like pinned it there, so it'd be like a poof almost.
So Hermione feels that she's seen... Again, it's out of the corner of your eye, but she's seen people walking through but she felt she's seen a woman with kind of gingery reddy hair, big hair, walking through the hall there, walking outside of there,
Yeah, this is not how you.
But then assumed that it was Jackie's friend Lady B coming, and it wasn't.
Oh, this is what I mean. Though it's like a sort of.
Or it sort of scintillates. Yeah, it's like it sort of comes in and goes out again.
I think this is the thing about paranormal activity as well. It's kind of fleeting often. And when I was married to the ghost, it wasn't that fleeting, so I kind of it stuck with me. But
if only it had been a bit more fleeting,
it should have been a bit more fleeting. Would have saved me from.
Might have worked out slightly better. Yeah.
But with it's sort of like just little bits, and it is that thing.
Well, certainly. So the American ghost hunters felt that she was very sentient and that she was very engaged with what was going on. There's a lot of what they saw with this. This is a lot of but then there was that classic moment where one of them was describing her walking through the room with a bowl of flowers, saying I could smell the flowers, and then it was the sound guy went like, I caught sight of him like that when he went like that, and there was a Joe Malone scent thing literally right where he was.
Literally your room fragrance,
which was just sort of like okay, right. Yeah. The very interesting, this idea that she is, they describe her as being very engaged with everything that's going on and very protective and
really into you,
but also quite proud, but proud of everyone in a way. I mean, I'm in here now. I mean, she probably would be different if there were other people in her. Like they said, they felt that she had quite a very strong attachment to Jackie. She saw Jackie as being someone that she could really relate to. Was very much on her wavelength. And then it was very interesting about the other figure that they then felt very much was John Roberts, was that he was incredibly strong and that they could see him a lot. But he never felt as if he was engaged with what was going on. It was just, he was like a recording, whereas the lady was much more, always present.
I feel like the man that I mentioned earlier, like I don't even know if it's John Roberts, to be honest.
No, well, I mean, again, we go.
All I pick up on is this very. Almost quirky is probably the right, very unexpected personality.
Eccentric.
Very eccentric, very flamboyant. Probably not too dissimilar to yourself, I guess. So maybe...
Who knows? Maybe that would, I mean, this is one of the things is that people always assume that, in if the Civil War was to come again, I'd declare for the king because of the outfits. But actually I'm a frightful parliamentarian. I definitely,
Appearances can be deceptive.
Very much so, very much so. But I mean, you see, I love all of this. I mean, I love the idea that as a family, you could almost take us, and we kind of do sometimes with our Christmas cards. Take us into a different period, and we would still be
the whole Kardashian thing and sort of dress up.
We have done. Yeah, I'm not going to lie.
That's amazing.
But actually, I can see this homestead being occupied by us as a family in the 1640s, or the 1690s, or the 1720s. And it would be the same, the sons-in-law would be the same. They'd be doing slightly different jobs maybe, but, maybe we'd still all be working together. Jackie would be identical. She would still be, the glamour mamma mia at the heart of it all. The grandchildren don't change. I mean, they play with Minecraft now, then they played with a hoop.
Yeah, exactly.
But, they'd be running around, causing mayhem, stealing cherries out of the vegetable garden, all of that kind of stuff. And actually, that makes me feel very comfortable that, we are not different.
What was it that drew you to purchasing this home?
Well, so famously, I didn't at all.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
I had nothing to do with it.
Okay. I don't know the backstory.
No, so I mean, we were living in Greenwich. We had a lovely house in Greenwich. Both of us felt that we were probably due a move. Cecile had just started big school in Greenwich and didn't like it. So we sort of thought, well, if we're ever going to move, now's the time. And then my brother, who lived a little bit further up our street, very, very wealthy, he desperately wanted my house. So he basically just offered cash. So we just went, right, okay, there we are. Let's find someone. I was away filming a lot. I was doing the holiday program for the BBC. Jackie was just looking. She was looking. And then she came here, and this is the first house she saw. And this is all on camera as well, because we were doing this Fly on the Wall documentary. All on camera, and she just looked around and said, "This is the one. We're going to buy this one."
So it's almost like the house chose Jackie.
Kind of. And then I was in India. She said, "I really like it." And I said, "Well, buy it." And she said, "But you haven't seen it." I said, "Well, you are the one that's going to have the big reaction to it. If you wait for me, we'll never find anywhere because it's not going to have this and it's not going to be the right date and it's not going to be. And I can remember after I got back from India, I think literally off the airport and we drove through and I was going, really? Okay. It's a lot more twee than I thought it was going to be. But I remember, thinking, well, no, but this is unusual. It's not the big, like, posh, showy offy Cotswold house that a lot of people have got, and I think it's a lot to do with its history. I think of the fact that it was a refuge for this early Quaker community.
And obviously, because it's listed, that means that you can't change it too much. You can't get away. Oh wow! Technically,
no. We work with the planners because again, it's like with this putting the staircase in. We could prove that there had been a staircase somewhere in this room. They were very relaxed about it, and everything. I think that people approach listing and planning in the wrong way. Actually, it is about augmenting as well as preserving. And if you've got a strong case for it, then do it.
So we touched upon, your dog's not going to like this. Earlier we touched upon haunted objects. So this little fella is from, I don't know how much about American hauntings you know. This is from the Clown Motel in Nevada. And this clown is supposedly haunted. I don't know if you're picking up anything from looking at him.
I mean, the thing is that actually...
It does have a music box in the back, so that would explain that.
But the thing that I find very interesting about this is that you can tell why people would find it so disturbing because it's a face, but not quite a face.
It is a little bit odd.
The fact that it's so distorted and abstracted, and the fact that it is very.
The dog does not like it.
Oh no, she doesn't like anything. The fact that it is very, it's ostensibly very jolly, but actually there are a lot of kind of other reference points. I can see how people are not comfortable with it. I feel sorry for whoever designed it.
This is really, really odd because I was doing a ghost hunt in Nevada at this place, and this doll was kind of pointed out to me and I was drawn towards it. And the motel let me bring it home to do a paranormal investigation on it. And sometimes I find that its limbs, I had it in the back of my car when I was doing this road trip because I'm like that. And his head and body would move. So I'm still conducting my little investigation.
Visually, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on with that object. I can tell you now, and it's because I haven't got my glasses on as well. It's very intriguing. Things like the stripes are very confusing.
Right.
And then what you've got as well is you've got these, very, very eye-catching bits of black and then these eye-catching bits of red. So it's actually, there's a lot of like quite negative design before you even start on whether that's got issues.
Well, the thing that I picked up on is that this clown was once owned by a clown who used to perform in a carnival in America. And when I first saw this clown, it was like right at the top, like on the top shelf. And this is a room full of a million clowns.
I'm sure I've seen photographs of it.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's you'd recognise. It's literally rows and rows of clowns. And apparently all of these clowns have been donated because they're haunted, some for other reasons. And when I first looked at this clown, the vision that I had was really quite sad and of sorrow.
But how do you get on with clowns anyway?
Well, I don't really come across them in everyday life.
No, but I mean, do you find them freaky or?
I find them, it's a bit like dolls, isn't it? There is something a little bit eerie. Is that
association though, or is that your original thinking going on there? Because I think this is always one of the problems, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because we inevitably get involved in these kind of cliches and these tropes and, clowns, for a lot of people. There was a time when clowns were considered to be wonderful, jolly, happy agents of joy. But certainly now there's this sort of, inbuilt skepticism.
Yeah, and, sort of Halloween horror nights.
Exactly. They've been so well trodden.
Yeah.
All those paths that lead to kind of creepy clowns are so well trodden.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely something aesthetically pretty creepy and pretty
Let's see, I wonder
disturbing.
how my grandchildren feel about it.
Yes, let's see.
Can you just come and have a look at this doll and talk to me about it? This clown doll.
What doll?
There. What do you think about it? Come on in.
I know.
Well, you know what?
What is that?
I just want you to go and look at it. What does it make you think? Come on, you've got to come into camera, or else you're not there.
I don't want to.
Why? It's all right. We can paint teeth on you afterwards. This is album, by the way, World. So to talk to me about that clown. Do you like that clown? Why don't you like it?
It looks creepy.
Does it? What? Oh, you've upset it now.
That's
What's
actually
creepy
happening,
about
let's
it?
see.
Can I just go back over to my house?
What's creepy about it? Just quickly. Buy a present if you answer it
I don't
correctly.
know.
Oh, you don't know. You just think it's creepy.
You're a liar.
My pants are on fire. Of course I am. Right, well, go on then. Are you coming for a sleepover tomorrow?
Yeah.
Cool. We'll have a sausage feast. There you go.
There you go.
So,
It's creepy.
expert, creepy.
Wow.
He hates clowns, though.
Oh, really?
He absolutely hates clowns. He finds clowns, he thinks clowns are agents of destruction and chaos.
Oh, wow. We did well to get him to the door then, I
Yeah, I
guess,
know,
but-
right?
I mean, I'm not sure if creepy is conclusive in terms
No,
of my
no.
paranormal investigation. I mean, I
I
was
think
hoping...
you might need to go a bit further than that.
Yeah. But, yeah, this little guy is with me for the foreseeable, so
Yeah.
it would be interesting.
Well, I mean, I feel sorry for him. Because I
I've
feel
stolen him from his
no,
home.
because I feel that there's so much baggage going on there. That I don't, like I say, I think that's it's a very strangely designed object. So I can see how it knocks people off sideways. But is it actually haunted? Is it negative? I mean, it's. I'd like to give the little fella the benefit of the doubt. So he enjoyed that, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. And that is sporadic. It does have a little winding thing, but I'm not touching it. But yeah, I just thought that would be an interesting thing for the clowns.
So yeah, no, I mean, I'm not running screaming from it at all. But and actually, I'm very interested in clowns. I think clowns are very interesting.
Yeah, they're very aesthetically pleasing in some ways.
Well, they
in a
used to
dark
be.
way.
So these are these kind of like crazy ones. They're the Auguste that have the kind of very exaggerated makeup. But you used to then also get the pantaloon. And I remember them as going to the circus as a child, and I thought they were covered in sequins. And David Bowie in the Ashes to Ashes video. It's got a kind of a conical hat.
Yes, I do.
White
notice
face.
that. Yeah.
Very wide shoulders and lots of sequins and frills.
Yeah.
That's a pantaloon. And I was,
Okay.
and so the idea always was that with the two clowns, the Auguste is called the Auguste because he always gets it wrong. Trips up and it's all slapstick, whereas the pantaloon's much more clever and much more civilized and much more cultured. So you don't tend to get that anymore. You only tend to get the Auguste clown.
The Auguste.
It's crazy when you go to Monaco, which is like this obsession with circus.
Oh.
So the museum in Monaco is all about automaton and clowns.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. There you go. I'll have to go and see if there's any haunted clowns in Monaco, won't I?
I don't think there's much room for haunting in Monaco. It's so it's just
Yeah, I mean, I don't think
tiny little space.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be leaving with one of those. They're probably worth a few.
No, well, it's funny. Not one of my favourite places at all. But it was something to do with. I think it was Princess Grace had a real thing about circuses, and so it became this kind of literal mecca for the circuses, European circuses.
Interesting. I just feel a bit weird sitting here.
Can't think why.
Can't think why. All in a normal
And it's a
day.
bit clashy with your frock, but other than that, it's
I
fine.
mean, yeah, we didn't.
But it's interesting you said you didn't like white and red, or that Milady didn't like white and red, and yet what's that? That's white and red. It's almost like she knew what was coming. She knew what was in your bag.
Yeah, it's
Beware the white and red that you're bringing out of your bag.
It's a superstition thing. Allegedly, it's believed that white and red together are a sign of blood.
Yeah,
or
but you know where
death
that
or
comes
sorrow.
from.
No, I don't.
It's First World War.
Yeah, my nan
So
used
it's
to say that.
quite late.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it was the white of the bandages and the red of the blood.
Yeah.
But I don't think I've never heard of it going any further back than the First World War.
No. Well, maybe that's a clue as to where. I don't know if
Well,
that
I know.
even,
You
I mean,
see,
I
we don't know, do we?
don't know.
I mean, she, her red hair put up, she might have been a hippie. You know, we've got no idea. Could be anything.
I mean, I wouldn't say her dress indicated that period, but
Well, they did a lot of historic. I mean, look, if you turned up as a ghost looking like that, would anyone go, oh, definitely 2024? Not necessarily at all.
They'd be like, what the hell is she
They'd
wearing?
kind of go, well, you know, it could be anything, really. You know,
Could
you
really
look like it's a bohemian gypsy girl. I mean, it could be anything.
If that's your take on my...
And there's you saying that she quite likes me because I look like the 1640s. I mean, you know, we're actually a lot more. I mean, I think this is one of my things is that I think we're a lot more timeless than we give ourselves credit for, and where we have come from as a world, which is the 20th century, which has been obsessed with modernity, and if you wanted a treat, then you think about the future. All of that has been completely compromised now. We don't like modernism. We don't like the modern world. It's destroying the planet. You know, and the future does not feel orange at all. It does not feel cozy whatsoever. We're beginning to re-engage much more with the past, which is where we should have been in the first place. You know, the past is what makes us, you know, move forward into the present and the future. Yeah,
it's fascinating. And it's also, I mean, there's a lot of references, from style references in here, isn't there? From
No, constant. You know, and I have weird conversations with the house about, because, you know, this is a new wallpaper treatment. I mean, you know, we will be selling this, and it's like, yeah, I feel a bit bad about, you know, giving you Isnik tiles. How do you feel about that? You know, you're a 17th century man now. Well, this bit's 16th century. You know, you would never have normally had an Isnik tile, but, you know, bring it on.
Well, I mean,
give it a go.
I think, obviously, furniture like this is beautiful now, but, I mean, you're not going to get that with an IKEA. Well, you might. I don't know. That might be. You don't.
No, you don't. And, I mean, this is one of my big hobby horses, is that, you know, the knee-jerk where you go to the nameless Swedish flat pack emporium, and
so
you pay, you know, exactly 350 quid for a flat pack wardrobe, which is never properly assembled because you did it yourself, falls to pieces in 2 years, ends up in landfill along with all the packaging, and yet that £300 in in an antiques market now will buy you something beautiful and Edwardian, which will be absolutely crafted to perfection. You go to a local auction, you probably get something Victorian. You know, you and these are objects that have legacy, have craftsmanship, have engagement to them.
I don't think everyone wants that, if I'm honest.
People are worried about it. Yeah. People are worried about it because they think it's haunted. You know, they don't want that link back to history. But things are changing. Yeah. And you know, thrifting is becoming such a big thing now, and maximalism is becoming such a big thing, where people are now actually looking at older stuff. And I think things in the future will be a lot more respectful for the past.
Anyway, it was lovely to hear your experiences and to talk about such a variety of...
Well, you know, like I say, I mean, I think that there's so much more than we ever really understand.
Yeah.
And I think that we've been through a period where we've actually deliberately understood even less because we've become so obsessed with empirical, scientific, proof. We've got this concept of fact, which actually I don't necessarily think really exists. You know, I think it's all a bit of a grey area with everything, not least, you know, and other dimensions, other experiences, other energies.
Yeah, it's a minefield, but it's an interesting topic. I feel. Hence why I'm dedicating my
exactly.
time
And
to
I now take quite fatherly interest in you, and I want you to now promise me that you won't be as seduced by any more ectoplasmic fancy men.
No, I feel
not until they've really declared their intentions.
Yeah, I feel like I was a little bit too open-minded.
Rash. I think I'm a little bit rash.
A little bit impulsive, maybe.
A little bit impulsive.
I wouldn't say easy. But yeah. No, I feel like the decision to marry was perhaps a little bit of a regret, but you can't regret anything, can you?
I mean, you need to try these things. And I think you were probably the first. So, you know, there you go.
Well, there you
That's
go.
a feather in your cap.
That is a feather in my cap, and I won't shake it, will I? I won't get rid of the ghost thing. But anyway, well, thank you.
No, not at all. Really nice to see you, and good luck with him.
Yeah, I was going to shake your hand, but you're going to shake his hand.
But I do. Yeah, I feel sorry for him. The more I look at him, and I think also because, you know, whoever made him thought they were doing such nice things as well, like having the shiny eyes on the matte face. But it's things like that I think people find very difficult.
I haven't explored, but I do feel like it is a head just wedged into some sort of...
But that's perfectly usable. You know, that's how it was. I mean, you'd have like a kind of a bean bag or something with a... What is the head? Is it? Yeah, it's like a ceramic beast.
Head.
Yeah. And, you know, there's something very pleasingly, you know, baby-like about these chubby cheeks. And you know, there's something actually very nice about it. But if you repainted that face, I don't think anyone would have a problem with that doll.
Oh.
If
really?
you painted that
give
face...
him a little makeover?
Pink with little cheeks and blue eyes, and, you know, everyone would just think it was super cute.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Maybe I should give him a little makeover and see if he...
It's the, you know, as you say, it's the bad luck colours of red and white.
Yeah.
And then the black, which is very confrontational.
New outfit, new face.
Do it.
Yeah, I could be like a doll surgeon.
You could be a doll rescuer.
Well, yeah. And then he can live a happy life, not haunting anyone.
I think he's living a perfectly happy life, actually.
I think he is.
I think he's quite enjoying his celebrity.
Apart from the fact that he does move on his own, that's the thing that bothers me the most. If I wake up one morning with him on my pillow, I'm definitely not getting married to him.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't, yeah.